It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and I am here with several members from NET Ministries, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves, name, and maybe how you first learned about or got involved with NET, a little bit of your journey to NET Ministries.
All right, yeah. So my name is Francie Zanatelli. I'm 21 years old, and I'm from Palm Beach, Florida. And originally, so my mom's a religion teacher at a Catholic school, and she just kind of found out about NET through, I guess, like the religion teacher world, and signed up for a travel team to come and do a retreat for her students. So they came about 4 or 5 years ago and started doing retreats for her yearly, and each time they would come, we would host them at my house. So I never attended the retreats because I was older, but I loved when they would come and we would host them and they'd stay at our house and stuff. So I guess I kind of considered it, and it was always in the back of my mind. And then when I got my associate's degree at my state college, I was getting ready to transfer to a university and finish my degree. But I was kind of well, maybe I'll do NET first. So I actually did NET last year, and I'm serving a second year this year.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been great.
What was your associate's in?
I'm just general education.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
My name is Mary Beth Dahl. I'm 22 and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this past May, I just graduated from college. I got an undergrad degree in chemistry, and I want to attend medical school. And so I got my application all ready to go, and I took the MCAT, which is the admissions exam. So I'm planning to apply next year, but I'm taking 9 months this year to serve with NET. I heard about it through, I guess, just different alumni that had done NET. NET's headquarters is in West St. Paul, so that's not too far from my house. So there's a big kind of NET community in the area, and people who are just familiar with NET or NET alumni who just had really great things to say. So I figured it was just a good thing to do with a year before I hopefully attend medical school.
Do they still have the big NET rallies up there, these evenings
the
with,
Lifeline
music?
masses? Yeah. So once a month at the NET Center, they have I think it's over 1,000 youth.
Yeah.
And they have they bring in a pretty big Catholic speaker, and they have music, and, mass, and I've actually never attended one, but I know they are pretty big in the cities. Interesting.
All right.
My name's Gabe Thorpe. I'm 18 years old, and I'm also from Minnesota. And I heard about NET. It was I live about an hour away from the NET Center where it's based out of nationally. So I've always just kind of known about it. I've had youth ministers, friends who did NET, and I went to Lifelines and stuff when I was growing up through high school. And I said that I was never going to do it because I was really involved with my youth group back home, and I had put on retreats that were just day-long retreats like we usually do on NET. I didn't feel like it was my thing. But then last January, I wasn't sure what I was going to do for this year. Had a couple different college options, and I started thinking about NET again. I was just thinking that I'd get a great Catholic community, really get to grow in my faith, and I get to travel and get training in that sort of evangelization, just when you meet people and you get to evangelize them. So I applied and got accepted, and I've really loved it ever since.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Patrick O'Sullivan. I'm 18. I'm from just east of Houston, Texas. I found out about NET whenever I had a NET alum from my area. She came and visited my parish probably about 5 years ago. And I had 2 friends that served on NET last year, one of them being a very good friend of mine. And while you're on NET, you get to go home for Christmas and New Year's. And I met with my friend for lunch, and she told me, well, Patrick, you've been looking at going to seminary and all these other things. Even our vocation director had told me, I'm not sure if this is a good idea for you now. So she was just like, you should do NET. And by you should do NET, she meant either I was going to apply and go, or she was going to apply for me and put me in a box and send me there. And I ended up applying and going to the interview, and I just loved it. And here I am today.
All right. So for those that are listening might not even know what NET is, how would you explain what NET is and what they do?
Well, NET stands for the National Evangelization Teams, and what they do, they take about 175 young people each year between the ages of 18 and 28, form them onto one of 16 teams, which are either retreat or retreat or discipleship teams that then work throughout the country, and they minister to young Catholics, just to challenge young Catholics to love Christ and embrace life in the church. And the two different types of teams, retreat teams, which are what we are on, Team 11. We just travel from place to place, holding different retreats, just working with youth. And retreats can range anywhere from 4 hours up to 3 days, while discipleship teams stay in one parish or school for the duration of their ministry, do more one-on-one youth outreach, and just really embed themselves into the community.
And so this is your Team 11, and that's out of 16 teams that are in the United States?
Yes, sir. And we have 176 missionaries this year.
Traveling around, you commit to 9 months of service.
Yes.
And then people come back the following year sometimes?
Yes. I think it's about like 20%, maybe 25% of missionaries end up coming back for a second year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then these retreats that you put on, are they kind of cookie cutter, like you've got just a couple different options to choose from, or does it vary from place to place and team to team?
So we have kind of all the same components on every retreat. Like every retreat has a main talk and has testimonies and games and music and prayer time. But the retreats can really vary depending on the group of youth and kind of what the parish or the school wants. So we have a bunch of different themes ranging from like finding your identity as a son or daughter of God to a confirmation retreat, finding true joy and happiness through your relationship with God. So we have different themes and kind of all the same components.
Okay. I'm here with Francie, Mary Beth, Gabe, and Patrick. All four are members of the NET team, 11 out of 16 U.S. teams. But we say that 16 teams, and that's a lot that are all around the country. But also there's international teams. Can you talk a little bit about the international mission of NET?
Yes, so the international mission is pretty much just like the U.S. mission, but they've just expanded to reach youth in Australia, Canada, Ireland, where else? Scotland, even down to Uganda. They just want to branch out to as many youth and just minister to as many youth as possible just to evangelize.
And mentioned you guys commit to 9 months of traveling the United States, leading retreats and discipling young people all across the country. What kind of formation? So you go through the application process, you get approved, and okay, I'm going to be a NET missionary. What is there to prepare you, to help educate you so that you can go and lead these retreats? What's that process like?
So the process is very, very thorough. NET has been around for a while, and they have a really good system to prepare their missionaries. It kind of starts off with, the best way that I've heard it described is a spiritual boot camp for 2 weeks to focus on the missionary's personal formation, because we can't give what we don't have. So just to really focus on our relationship with God. And then at the end of those 2 weeks, we get put onto our teams that we'll have throughout the year. And the next 3 weeks of training, we focus on just the ministry that we're doing and getting to know our team, because we're going to be with them from September to May. So we really want to get to know them and build a relationship with them, then also prepare for all the different things that we do on retreat.
Is this something that any of you had background in beforehand, leading retreats or giving talks or any of that?
I worked a little bit in my diocese and with my local parish, but definitely not on this scale.
Yeah.
I was involved with my youth group back home too, but this is a lot more intense than that.
And then you also do music at the events?
Yeah, each team usually has like about 2 musicians. None of us are musicians, but
Okay.
we have 2, great musicians on our team.
So how many people are on a team?
Well, retreat teams will vary normally between 10 to 15 members, while discipleship teams will range anywhere from 6 to 10, just where it's needed. The retreat teams need a little bit more, because sometimes we'll be working with 150 plus youth at a retreat, so we obviously need more people there to break them up into small groups a little bit easier, so you're not sitting there with a small group of 15 plus youth, because it gets a little wild there. While the discipleship teams, they really get to, they can embed themselves into the community, and they get to do more one-on-one type things. They just don't need as many members.
So you guys would even lead the small groups. You don't expect the host organization to provide small group leaders and stuff. That's amazing. So what is the goal of a NET retreat?
So with the retreat teams, our goal is really just to plant seeds of faith. Like we really only come in for, a few hours up to maybe a day or two. And so we're really just hoping to plant that seed. Youth get a lot of catechesis and they learn a lot of like facts about the faith, but we're really hoping to like ignite that personal faith, that like love for the faith and love for God and that personal relationship. And so we kind of hope that like by our witness for them to be able to see other young people on fire for their faith and loving God, we're just hoping to like inspire that in them and in their hearts.
So you mentioned that these retreats are sometimes 4 hours, sometimes 3 days. So let's start with the 4-hour retreat. How do you try to do that, your mission there that you just explained, in a 4-hour retreat? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a 4-hour retreat, we really don't have much time. We really just try to go in there and we have our main talk and we have our small groups, which we find to be really effective, that kind of like peer-to-peer relational ministry. And then we have our prayer time, which we have that in every single retreat, because that's kind of when we can do our talks and our testimonies and all of the things that we've practiced and prepared. And then we kind of like step out of the way and like kind of just give it to God and pray and like, God, they're in your hands now.
And also during the retreats, every retreat has its own topic. So one of the more common ones that we do is called With Great Power, which is all about confirmation, the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and what really happens during confirmation. Then we have another one called Anchored in Hope, which is about suffering and hope and how God uses suffering, to teach us very important things. Then even Fully Alive, and which is about true happiness. And then also we have men's and women's retreats, which just really go deep into what does it really mean to be a true man or woman of God.
So when you do one of those, you are a group of both men and women. So do you do both retreats at the same time? You do a men's retreat at the same time as a women's retreat, and the men on the team are leading the men's retreat and the women are leading the women's retreat?
Yeah, they kind of, we all start together and we'll like do games and stuff in the beginning all together. And then we just kind of break off into like separate areas of wherever the retreat is held. And just really like have a good time as like women, to just talk about our dignity and like what it means to be a woman of God. And we have a lot of fun too, so it's good. But yeah.
And then what are the men focusing on a similar topic?
Yeah, it's essentially like what does it mean to be a man of God? Because obviously when you look at the world today, for both men and women, there's a lot of negativity and a lot of very the culture is not Catholic at all, so it's very important to just kind of focus on what does it mean to be a woman of God, what does it mean to be a man of God, and how can you bring your faith to the world through that identity.
We're talking with several of the members of the NET Ministry Team 11 who are in town here on, this is kind of like an off time for you, a little bit of a break, and so then you just find a host family and you actually stay in with one of our employees here at Redeemer Radio House. So what does your typical, I want to talk about your typical off day, but I guess first, what does a typical day when you're coming into a parish look like? Or is it just completely different from every single parish and every single retreat that you're doing?
I mean, yeah, it is kind of an adventure. Every day is pretty different, but also like we'll wake up, of course we start the day with like our morning personal prayer. We really try to get at least like 30 minutes in to really like center your day and your life on God right off the bat. And then we'll usually travel to our retreat site an hour earlier before like the beginning, and we'll set up, have a little meeting, and then the youth will start to arrive, and the retreat, depending on how long it will be, will you do that. And then usually every day we'll try to have a team prayer all together, which is usually about like 45 minutes of just praise and worship, truly just praising God and thanking Him for all the beauty He's done. And then, we'll usually head back to our host family or travel to the next place. And it's awesome. A lot of times we'll get to have like a host family dinner and just get to know the family. And so,
And out of the 9 months that you're traveling together, how much or what percentage of those days are actually doing retreats, and how much of it is either a travel day or just kind of some downtime?
Well, typically we do retreats 6 days a week. We get one. They try to plan us for one off day a week just so we don't get too overbooked. But there have been times where we did 8 days straight of retreats, but it's just kind of up and down. They really try to keep us as busy as possible, but it's definitely a good busy. And whenever we have long strands of no retreats, the entire team is just kind of like, but we want to do retreats. You know?
What do you do when you have a day like today that you're not at a retreat?
It kind of depends on where we are, because our team, I mean, we have teams all over the country. Our team has been doing a lot in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And so sometimes we're in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota, and then it's kind of difficult to find something to do. But this past week, we were up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we were able to go hiking like up in the hills there and like see a waterfall and the snow and go snowshoeing. And so it really kind of depends on where we are, what we're doing, but we always find something to do just because there's always something in whatever community we go to, and we can ask the people there and they can kind of give us ideas and help us.
Yeah, when we're not able to like do something like adventurous and fun like that, a lot of times it's important for us to do like drama practices. Each retreat have like dramas and funny skits, which we call AMEs, after meal entertainment. We have to raise about $6,000 to $7,000 to be on the road, which is actually only a small portion of what it like costs for us. So yeah, of course we want to keep our donors updated, and so we send them a letter. We've been working on those. So yeah.
And in that $6,000 to $7,000, because NET takes care of literally everything for us, everything from our food to our travel to our housing to our health care, and it costs about $20,000 to put one of us to work for a year. So that $6,000 just kind of helps to offset some of those costs for them, because they are not for profit. And honestly, like for a lot of youth, it's like you have to raise $6,000 to do this. And we're like, yeah, but it is the easiest $6,000 I've ever raised in my life. But And then also, just to go back on those off days, all of us have our individual jobs. So like for me, my two little job titles are recruiting and van maintenance. So during right after retreats, I'm there, trying to recruit the older youth that are able to apply, but also I have van maintenance. So yesterday I had an off day. I spent probably 2.5, 3 hours rewiring all the lights on our trailer because they all went out. So it can be anywhere from just relaxing to doing very important jobs.
Yeah. What is some of the impact that you've seen on the youth, that maybe some stories from retreats and those attending the retreats?
So one of my titles, like he was just talking about, or jobs, I guess, would be like kind of a little marketing assistant. We have more marketing people at the NET Center, but I just kind of help them out, and I hand out these Share Your NET experience forms at the end. Actually, I just stand in the back, and they can come get one and fill one out if they want. The youth can fill them out. A lot of them will reply saying things like, it was just cool to see like young adult witnesses, like being on fire in their faith. So just the witness. One of my favorite ones that we recently got back was from the men's and women's theme retreat, and which is one of my favorites too. But she just was really impacted by just like knowing that she is beautiful, like because the Lord made her that way, and like we're all beautiful, and like none of us are mistakes because the Lord is like perfect. And yeah, just like she was really touched by that. I am beautiful because I am made by God. Just to know that like she can like look in the mirror and know like I'm a beautiful daughter of God. And she like wrote this down, and I was like, wow, we were all just excited that at least one person was able to realize that. But yeah.
And actually, we have one of those quotes in front of us from one of the youth. I saw men and women around my age loving God, and it encouraged me to stay strong in my faith. So it's those types of things that also really keep us going, so we get to read those at the end of the day.
Yeah. So for somebody who would like to learn more about NET, maybe see if they could bring a retreat into their parish or school, or if they want to be a missionary, where do they find information about it and apply?
Well, netusa.org has just about all of that information, anywhere from the application process to become a missionary, also to retreat scheduling. Just go onto netusa.org. There's a drop-down menu, and all these different topics are scattered throughout.
Yeah, thank you so much for stopping in today on your day off and sharing about NET with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.